Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We're a very small group today, so why don't we can get closer, or we can actually maybe we could sit this way. But if you like, do come closer and sit and relax. The intention Sheikh Muslim laid out for this meeting today was to to discuss and to reflect on what are could be the next steps. To express the inspiration and that everyone here has experienced and the nourishment that anyone has gotten, and to have something which can continue to nourish and perpetuate everyone on their paths. And the most important aspect of this that Sheikh Fadlallah had mentioned and is having a good companionship and having some proximity of that companionship. All paths have normally, they have three important elements. In Buddhism, it's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These are, you have the exemplary modeling of the perfect path, which in our case is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all of the inheritors and the awliya, and in particular are the access that we have to shuyukh and urafa and people of marifat that are amongst us that we can access to. So we have that, maybe not on a daily basis, but we do have that, and that we have the Dharma or the teachings of Islam, and we have now loosely, a sangha, a group of people who are wanting higher consciousness, that have a dhok, that have a taste for higher, to improve their condition and to be of service, because these two things are like how Sheikh Fadlallah described, they're connected. It's seamless, It's wa'amana wa'amilu salih. It is the iman that we have, that inner dimension has to find its expression in the world. It's just, that's the way it is. Everything has its opposite, and this world is a reflection of Allah's want and love to be known. And so we are just mimicking and echoing that apparent dual nature. So we have, in order for us to manifest in our own lives the names of Allah, the Asma Husna, that are resident within us, we have to find the outer expression of that, the mirroring of that in our daily lives. We can witness it, but then also we have to extend our hands and our tongues, and at least, again, in our hearts. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that if you see something that is wrong or something which is oppressive, you try to change it with your hand. And if you can't change it with your hand, try to change it with your tongue. And if you can't change it with your tongue, the least is at least change it in your heart. And that has a lot of implications also. Today, I think we're in a time where we can do all three, but changing it in your heart is very paramount, because the world, we're so connected in a one world community situation, and knowing things that are going on, they affect us. You hear something happened maybe in Bosnia or in Iran or in America or wherever, you can't do anything about it, but you can change it and bring it into a perspective in your heart, that it's Allah's plot and so on. Anyway, I don't want to take too long about this, because I think it's important that maybe we open it up to everyone here also to add to this discussion. But I'd like to just, as a prelude, just discuss a little bit about my personal experiences with communities. I have been living in community since the time I was 18 years old, and I'm 65 now. So I've had a lot of experience with community. I lived in Buddhist communities, Hindu communities, Gurdjieffian communities. I was in a community that the guru thought he was Apollo, and that was interesting. And there are other people here. I know Sheikh Saadi has had this experience. We've all lived in this, out of a need to have like-hearted and like-minded people around us, so that we can have that reflection and nourishment and support This is just our nature. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that you spend 40 days with the people, you become like them. We're ecological beings. You spend your time too much within the world and with people who are concerned about the outer, you can't help but then you get that dye starts to rub off on you. But if you spend time with dhikr and people of dhikr, then you get that sibghat Allah, that dye from Allah comes on you, and it permeates you. One of our shuyukh used to always say to us, if you want to know your state, if you're always wondering what condition you're in, look at the person sitting to your right and left. Meaning, who are you with? What are you doing? What's your life like? If it's constantly in this in ghafala, in forgetfulness, then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing with this precious time that Allah Azza wa Jal has given us? So the need for community is important, but at the same time, we have to read the time, as Shaykh Fadlallah has always underscored, and that we can't be sentimental about these things or romanticize, about like what the community of Medina, we'll recreate Medina. We'll never recreate Medina, but or any of the communities that have existed in the past at the times that they existed, in the circumstances that they existed. I want to give you a couple of insights that I've had regarding communities in the West. There was a time, and it's still actually going on, where you have a lot of Americans and some Europeans, I'll include them in this, but mostly my experience has been in the States, where someone goes who has a spiritual inclination and a yearning, and they go to a place like Turkey or to India, and then they meet a sheikh, and then within 2 weeks they're a sheikh themselves, and they come back. I'm over-exaggerating here, but it's like that. They come back and they put up a shingle and they want to reproduce what they saw in Senegal or in India or in Bosnia or wherever. But what happens is that it generally falls apart. It can't remain in that same model, because those models were developed in a cultural milieu. They were culturally founded, and they also had a community, a greater community around them that people had to be accountable to. They had their mothers and their fathers and their grandfathers and cousins and other people sort of keep watching and looking, and there was a ebb and flow. But when you try to take something like that and transplant it into America, it may, by the beginning intention, maybe work for a while, but invariably it falls apart. Whenever I've seen immigrants, half a dozen well-intended shuyukh from Americans got their training, didn't quite understand this dynamic, came to America, bought land, beautiful homes, anywhere from teepees to beautiful homes. The community that I know in Virginia, nearly 30 families. They have a free shop, and they have an organic garden. They have cows. They live together. But what happens in this concentrated circumstance, the sheikh becomes the focal point. Everybody sort of it becomes incestuous, and that everybody moves inward. And after a while, things start to disintegrate, because everybody's relying too much on a central point and on this vision. And here, let me give you this, it's really amazing. This vision, this particular vision, there was 30 families that moved together, and they bought a beautiful piece of land, and they thought that their children, once they married each other, their children would then grow up and marry each other and have children, So that's what they thought. So you know what happened? 90% of the children born in this community were girls, right? 90%. And so they go, what now, right? I mean, look, that's a sign, that it can't be like that. I mean, it can maybe like a caravan, it can exist for a while, but as any kind of longevity or consistency, we have to find what is the right pattern or the right community model that fits the day and age that we live. Sheikh Muslim mentioned something to me earlier today that sparked my thought about this further, was that he said that there was this organization that was developed to, at one point, to buy land and have something, but then everybody went off and had their own private situation. Well, that's the age we live in. We're living in the era of the self, the age of the self. Assalamu alaikum. And that's okay. Everybody wants to have their own sort of private homes and private circumstances and so on. I don't think we can avoid that reality any longer. I think that there's wisdom in it also, that even though it's a result of a consumer and atomized and fractured way of life, Allah Azza wa Jal has His ways to then turn it to His, so to speak, His plan. So I think we need to look at all those elements who are we now? What are we now? And what we want to sustain and the good things that we are. And how can we find a way to be more in contact with each other and have more community activity. There's a couple of models that have happened in the States amongst some professional communities where like the Google community, for instance. I know it's kind of a far reach, but I've watched them develop this, and also the Snapchat, Snapchat community. They bought up a good part of Venice Beach in California, and Google's bought up places in San Jose, New Mexico, other places. Apple's bought up these places. Now, why I'm mentioning all this is that they're sort of mirroring the model of this consumer thing, and they're surrounding a work or a corporate nexus. But there's something to learn from that, because they have that in common, and we have the path in common. We want to, so that's something we can transpose. And the way that they are living is that they provide this multi-tiered system of housing that in a way, from the outside of it, if you look at it, all their houses and so on look kind of the same, but on the inside, it depends on where you are on the economic scale. So, but it doesn't cause jealousies, and they want to make people feel they're all in the same team. So they have this understanding of a certain courtesy to each other, not to be ostentatious, not to be flaunting and so on. But the important element there is that they have this connection with each other, which is their work, and they live in proximity of each other, and then they have regular meetings and practices. And I'm saying that about us now. They're doing their computer and marketing and whatever. I mean, we could have our regular meetings of dhikr and practice, and places for solitude. A place where if a man or a woman just wants to get out of the domestic picture, and just go somewhere where it's neutral, without the domestic thing going on. A place where most mosques in America are awful. They're like strip malls that, with dirty feet-smelling carpet and fluorescent bulbs that completely destroy your brain. And if we had a place that had an aesthetic, if you walk in, you go, it's beautiful, like an ashram. I don't know if any of you, probably some of you have been to an ashram. There are places we can do that. We can make it beautiful so that you walk in and you reflect on Allah's beauty, and it touches your heart and so on. So the idea is, I think, is to have some place that maybe has a central, and I'm putting this out now as a suggestion. This is what I'd like to see. And from my experience, it tells me it could possibly work, is to have a conference and kind of center in which it is run by a kind of a representative board, sort of from the community of all levels, not just the ones who put the money in, but everybody on a rotating basis comes in and has a say and input, and there's a kind of a mashura type situation that is for people to come and they can have their dhikr and a good library and invite teachers and have retreats and use it as a sanctuary, a place to go for solace, for refreshment, and also have a commercial aspect to it, because you don't want it to rely just on charitable donations or fundraising, because normally if it's a lot to do with fundraising and charitable, it just happens. I mean, I've never seen it not happen for over a period of time, is that the people who put the money in or so on, there's always some strings attached. You know, it just, no matter what, it always just happens. You know, people, you know, I gave most of the money and, you know, they're not doing what I want. You know, I mean, ideally, if you give something fi sabilillah, it should be, you give it and it's gone. You know, you've done it biwajhillah, for the face of Allah. But it doesn't, in practice, it doesn't really play out that way. So it would have to be something which is supported on a wide base and with great clarity. And people live nearby. You know, just they have their own homes and so on. And then there could be, what Sheikh Fadlallah has been for at least as long as I've known him, you know, which is a long time now, many decades, is that he's always wanted to see a community that maybe are people who have become a bit older, and who maybe want to have, who are kind of past the phase of moving around from one place to another and a lot of traveling in their life and so on. But they want to, you know, open the door in the morning and see a smiling, you know, face, you know, somewhere that is on the same path and the same heartfulness. And when I mean older, it doesn't necessarily mean restricted to that. It could be anybody, but in that mode, you know, of wanting to have that type of a situation and be dedicated to it, you know. And so we looked at things like co-housing type projects. You know, they have them in Denmark a lot. I don't know if they have them here, you know, where people buy land and then they actually build separate homes in a kind of a circle around the center, and then they have their meeting hall, and once a week one family cooks for the rest of the community, or two families, or whatever it is. Something to connect everybody together. Then you can have people who are living with their own circumstance, and also at the same time they're not. They're living with other people in a more harmonious and reflective way. It's really difficult, this. I mean, people have done it. Most of them have failed, I mean, that I've seen, or most of them just don't get started. They get started and they just fizzle out, you know. And it's because a lot of times it's because of money. Although I don't like to really think that, because if the intention is there and Allah gives His permission to that, and everybody's really in it in their heart, it'll happen. But it has to happen, I think, in a way that everybody's really in with it, and in their heart and with their pocket and with their energy. But any model that we have to be careful not to think of it sort of in this sentimental Islamic, you know, cultural overlay. It has to be something completely different. It has to be a Swedish place, you know. And I want to just, I think I walked over very quickly the commercial part of it. We can have centers that I've seen that work, that have longevity. There's a center in Virginia called the Adams Center. Have anybody heard of that before? You can look it up on the internet. They're a mosque run by a very dynamic group of people. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf comes there a lot. Hakeem Archuleta goes there a lot. They have a lot of rooms and their main hall in which they lease out for 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days for seminars and retreats that are spiritually like. So they may even have a yoga thing going on there. And it sustains this place. So they have a commercial and economic component. They have a store, right, where they sell things. The model that I have been looking at, it's called the Adams Center.
Adams
Yeah,
Center.
and I mean, initially it was intention was like a Muslim community center, just like for the kids to come after school and like Sunday schools, but it grew into a multifaceted service center for the community around. Yet the local community uses it very well, and they're open to Sufism and more eclectic in their views. So it's become successful, to do that. The commercial aspect of it, I think, is really important. If we can move from relying on one or two or five or 10 or whatever people or donations and fundraising to some sort of commercial aspect, and one of the models that I've been pondering on is something on the line of a Muslim life center. So, a place where you can go and there's a beautiful rooms for prayer, for seminars, for retreats, for healing. Someone like Yakuta and the like can have regular sessions there with people. Outside people can come in and get exposed to a multifaceted presentation of Islam that they've never seen before, where it's, healing is going on, and a Muslim life store in which you can have wonderful products and clothing and toiletries and household goods and things like that that are humble and beautiful, and then a food place. You can even have a little restaurant, not a hookah bar, but I mean something, something that's again Swedish, but it's Muslim and so on. A multifaceted place, a business come, conference come, community center where everybody would like to be, and where Muslims can live, work together, and then live near and around it. So I mean, that's what I would like to see personally, something like that. I think it's the model for the time that we live in. I don't see any like doing a sort of away from everything sort of a place, because as soon as you get away from everything, it starts to become I don't know, toxic. I think we need to be in the world, and exposed, but limited, not too exposed, a balance, and at the same time be a place in which we can find our spiritual nourishment by being together, provide a medium for us to be together and nourish each other, and have talks and seminars and prayer and dhikr and have a good time. So that's what I wanted to share with you.